Hi there, everybody. I'm Joanne from TrueAuthenticPower.com, and I have been a success coach for a number of years now. And there are some things that seem to show up in my office with semi regularity that I think cause people more angst and pain than they realize. And I wanted to talk to you about some of those things that you might be assuming are helpful to you, and maybe they're not being so helpful, and I want to explain why. So, the first thing is positive affirmations. We've all heard it's good to be positive, reinforce the things that you want, downplay the things that you don't want, focus on the positive. Here's where it could work against you. If you are in a situation where you're saying something to yourself like, I'm successful, and you don't feel it, what's going to come up in your mind, what's going to come out of your subconscious is going to say, are you crazy? You're not successful. If this is what success looks like, you're really a failure. You'll get all the resistance kind of thoughts. And those are part of your subconscious. And how do you fix that? How do you change that? Okay, so every time you say something positive, you're going to get this, oh no, that's not true. That's not going to work for you. How do you release that? Okay, well, as a coach, I have been using a tapping technique called EFT, and it starts to change those tapes, those replays that you keep saying to yourself and that you're trying to stop. I had so many people when I was going through some of my own things and my blocks and my loops. I had so many people say to me, stop using those words. But here's the thing, those words are trying to grab your attention to tell you really what's in the way. They're there to almost help you, but people look at negative words or negative thoughts as being, no, stop, that's wrong. I'm here to tell you those thoughts can actually help you if you pay attention. Now, I don't know how many of you watching this know about tapping or how to use tapping, but if you are getting resistance to something that you're trying to say to yourself in a positive way, and you keep hearing, honey, that's not the truth, you're actually hitting a wall that says, no, your subconscious isn't buying it. And you can say those affirmations for a long time and not make any headway. And that's why you're actually reinforcing a resistance that says, heck no, that's not the case. If you learn how to do tapping, though, if you don't know how to do tapping, you can go to my website, trueauthenticpower.com. On my homepage, there's a video that shows you how to do it and how to use it to your benefit. But if you don't know how to do that, you're working against yourself. And I look at those replays or those words, or like, let me give you for instance, when I was going through a very, very hard time with a lot of loss and grief, people had gotten ill and died. It was a very devastating time for me. And I could handle about this much of life. I mean, I really was at the max with so much happening in a huge, big wave of tension and tightness and grief and sadness. And I would say the words, I can't. Now, some of my energy friends who know me at that time would say, you've got to stop saying you can't, you can't. My version of I can't was, I can't do that now. They didn't know what I was capable of doing before I hit the skids with all this emotional stuff that hit me like a tidal wave. I wasn't saying I can't forever. In my words, I was saying I can't. I can't handle one more thing. I am to the max of handling just this stuff that's going on in my life right now. I can't push forward. I can't create more. I can't. It was actually saying I'm so overloaded. And those are the kind of things that I used to tap away through this tapping technique. I think it's wonderful when you want to try to be positive, but if you're hitting resistance, I would suggest to you to do some tapping and learn how to do it if you don't know how to do it, and pull down some of that resistance first, because then the positive, it's kind of you're not resisting when you put in the positive after that. It's like, oh, maybe that's a possibility. Oh, maybe I can do that. Oh, when I'm not so overwhelmed. Because when you're in fight or flight, something big is going on, or something says this could be dangerous if you try to go forward in this way, whatever you're trying to do. you're going to fight it for all you're worth. And I'm telling you, you're going to end up exhausted. So that's the first myth that I think could work against you. The second myth that I hear from a lot of clients is when I suggest to them, it's a good idea to put yourself first. Now, I'm not talking about narcissistic. I'm not talking about ignoring everybody else. I'm not talking about being unkind in any way. What I'm talking about, though, is doing things that feed your mind, body, and spirit, your soul, bring you joy, bring you happiness. Because here's what I see a lot in my office: people have given until it hurts, people have put themselves at the bottom of the list for years. They do all the right things. They do what they think they were supposed to. They bought into the belief that it's better to give than to receive. If there is not a reciprocation of energy flow, if there's not an evenness, a kind of give and take, the tide goes out and it comes in. If you are stuck in just doing and giving and giving and giving and giving, I would venture to say you are not paying attention to your needs. You're going to end up angry, maybe burned out, maybe lost, alone, because if you give, and there's no reciprocation, I've seen detrimental things happen from that. And my office has been filled with people who really didn't understand how important it is to put yourself first. Again, I have a tool on my website. It's called Design Your Life Now that will help you get in touch with what it is you really need. And I'm not talking, I need $100,000. It's not that kind of what do you need. It's more emotional. Who do I love to be around? It brings into focus the kind of things that you need to think about, the kind of things that you need to pay attention to that will fill you up from the inside out so that you can give from an authentic place, from a filled up place instead of I'm doing for you so that I can get. A lot of people do and give and do and give, and then they end up exhausted. And is this, this isn't what I signed up for. Save yourself the exhaustion. Save yourself the some energy because in order for you to be the best that you can be, you've got to find your bliss. You've got to find your happiness. You've got to find the things that will balance you out and bring you joy. That's the second one. The third one is I hope I can explain this in a correct way. When people are told to be grateful, and you are drowning, either emotionally, with too much stress, with too much to do, too many life events that hit you all at the same time, the last thing that you find yourself able to do in those shoes is be grateful. And it's not because you're an ungrateful person, it's because you might be needing. You know how I said putting yourself first, you can get so depleted because you're giving, doing. If you are depleting yourself, it is so hard. If you are depleted from life, if you are depleted from circumstances, if you're having trouble finding a balance in your life, feeling gratitude is so hard. And now, if you can't feel grateful or gratitude for the things that you have, now let's pile on top of all those other feelings of overwhelm or I'm drowning with now you feel guilty because now you can't do that either. And you're supposed to be a good person and feel grateful for the things that you've got. Again, tapping will make that easier. If you start pulling, think of it this way. If you're in a hot air balloon and you've got all these sandbags on you, how are you supposed to lift off and feel happy? How are you supposed to lift off and feel good? Tapping kind of works like you're cutting off those sandbags to release the things that are hanging on you and pulling you down so that when you are lifting up into gratitude, it's a higher vibrational energy. It's a higher way to feel about your life. And if you're struggling with that, I would suggest to you that maybe you do some tapping. If you don't know how to do it, again, go to trueauthenticpower.com. You will find a video on my homepage that tells you how to do it. The other thing I want to talk a little bit about is, and this is a pet peeve of mine, and I want to put a different point of view. It just because I know energy now and I know how the subconscious mind works. And I know how when certain things happen, it's actually there to teach you, to help you, maybe even to protect you or change an ingrained pattern that got developed from a subconscious belief that you don't even know is there. When I hear someone say they survived something, I would like to turn that around. Now, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and she was talking about a cancer survivor. And I, when I hear cancer survivor, one of the things that I think of is, why was that person so overloaded and so out of balance that illness showed up? Now, I'm not saying you've brought it on. I'm not saying it's conscious. I'm not saying anything of the sort. What I want you to pay attention is, what was going on that was maybe emotionally draining, emotionally exhausted. There's a website called German New Medicine. I think I have that name right. And the theory behind German New Medicine is that sometimes a 3 to 5 year time frame before people find an illness or a symptom, let's even go in a global, in a bigger way, a symptom that you don't like. What was going on when it started? What was happening emotionally, and what might you need to do to either clean up a pattern that you're seeing show up or clean up the root cause of what might have brought that on. I'll give you, for instance, I developed allergies out of the blue. I had never had allergies before. I had never had asthma before, and they both showed up at the same time, about somewhere in the 6 to 8 months after my dad passed away. I was very close to my father. Wasn't didn't really have time to grieve because of other circumstances. That's a whole nother story. But what I want to tell you is that I was overloaded with emotions, and a lot of times the energy in the chest area, it can be linked to grief and sadness. Now, I had never had allergies before. I had never had breathing issues before, and no test, any pulmonary test that I was taking, showed that I had any issues. And yet I couldn't seem to get a full breath. And my first thought was, why now? What's going on? And why is this showing up? There's something going on here. Out of the blue, all of a sudden I developed this. It wasn't until years later that I realized that that grief and sadness had locked into my energy, and there was no way for it to escape. Now, when you do a technique like tapping, you can address some of those things. I've had some people that get through amazing, devastating events because they kind of eased the emotions as they were going through it. So if you feel like you're a survivor of something, I would say to you, how could you be empowered? Look at what was going on around that point in time. What might you have been overloaded with, depleted about, just something that you might have needed that you weren't getting enough of? Because I think some of those symptoms of any kind, whether it's symptom of success, lack of money, illness, ailments, physical, emotional symptoms, when they show up, I look at those things, especially in my own life and with clients too. What was going on that got you so out of balance that then this symptom showed up, this issue showed up? Especially if you've got a reoccurring theme with something that keeps replaying, whether it's dating the wrong person, getting the wrong kind of boss, not making enough money, there's something there that's stuck within you. Now, I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm not saying you did it on purpose. But what I'm saying is, when you dig a little deeper beneath the surface of a pattern or a loop that you keep replaying, there's something there that can empower you. Now, to do all this on your own is pretty difficult. When I was going through some of my deepest, darkest grief and sorrow kind of situations, I had to have help from other practitioners. So I don't want you to think that you can just tap away and you can figure all that out yourself. There's a the mechanics of tapping are very easy, but getting to how you understand and how you unravel what's going on, that takes skill and experience. But I wanted to at least tell you that it's possible. It's possible to be empowered after you feel like you've survived something, whether it be an ailment, an illness, a devastation, a crappy situation, whatever. There's something in your energy that's there that can help you. And when you get to that, man, I've seen people fly and thrive and come out of situations in such amazing, peaceful, grateful ways. This video is about, maybe there's something beneath what you're doing. And I wanted to just give you some food for thought. Think of things in a little bit different, to think of things in a little bit different way, and to tell you about tapping because it can turn around those things. So, you're not familiar with tapping, or even if you are familiar with tapping, you can go to my website, trueauthenticpower.com. I have some products there. I have some videos there that can help you. I have some expert videos that can explain more about the science and how this technique works. I mentioned putting yourself first, how great that is. I do have an audio product that can help you do that. You might want to try it out. There's so much within you that's ready to mm, just like the hot air balloon, the sky's the limit, but it goes up in a peaceful way, not a gotta fight and gotta push. There's an easier way to deal with your subconscious beliefs that might be attracting some of that turmoil that you've got going, and you might not even have known that you were doing that or how it got rooted. So until next time, this is Joanne from TrueAuthenticPower.com. Bye bye.